Hi everyone, my name is Charlie and today I'm going to be doing my October wrap-up. This is going to cover a whole range of books. I disappeared for the entirety of September and October. September you got 2 videos, and although I did do a September wrap-up, I recorded a September book haul and an autumn tag, and I still haven't put a review up for The Sinking of the RMS Taylor, and I'm still trying to figure out how to get that from my phone, so we may just have to re-record it. Firstly, because I'll be talking about these books anyway, here are the books I bought in October. We have Angel Catbird by Margaret Atwood, Johnny Christmas and Tamra Bonvillain. Margaret Atwood made a graphic novel. She's just branching out all over the place. Then we have Another Night Before Christmas, a poem by Carol Ann Duffy, The Mothers by Britt Bennett, Autumn by Ali Smith. I'm going to talk about 3 of them in detail because they're the only ones I read. I haven't read a lot lately, but I will come to that in another video. Or, just go to Twitter, tell you everything there. The Mothers by Britt Bennett follows Nadia Turner, this girl who's coping with grief after her mother has killed herself, and she feels alienated by her father. She ends up getting with the pastor's son. There are some secrets, there's this religious overtone, and it follows their lives over a certain time period as they progress from young adults to adults. I know that quite a few people have really enjoyed this book. You will go across BookTube, YouTube, and you will see people talking about this book. And obviously, it must be doing something right for it to be appearing on lists that talk about how much of a good book this is. I personally didn't like it. To me, it's a book that has so much potential but doesn't necessarily live up to it. When you first start reading, and each chapter begins with this narrative told from the collective voice of the mothers. There wasn't any need for them. You could remove the passages and it would have no bearing on the story whatsoever. Like, this book needed more refining. Although Britt Bennett definitely has talent, it needs to be polished because I could constantly see what she was trying to do, and it did feel very much like a first-time book, which I've said before isn't a bad thing. It just means that I'd like to see what she does in future, because I can see that she has potential, but at the moment I don't feel like she's living up to it. I feel like she was trying to force these hidden meanings and these metaphors down the reader's throat throughout her prose, and as a writer you don't need to do that. You can just make your metaphor, leave it there, and I'm pretty confident that most readers will be able to come in and say, do you know what, I know what she's talking about. You don't have to spoon-feed readers. This book is very much like a load of jigsaw pieces thrown together and kind of hoping that they'll fit, and they don't. It wasn't that I didn't like what it was about, I just feel like for a 275 page book it went on too long, and that's not really what I should be saying. I feel like it could have been dealt with in a short story rather than a novel, and the characters didn't really feel like characters at all. Like, I didn't empathise or sympathise with any of the characters, and the stuff that's happening to them, I should have really felt that. I kind of did my part as the reader here. I just don't think that Bennett did her part as the writer, and again, she has brilliant potential. I would love to read her later books, but I didn't much care for this one. Then I read Another Night Before Christmas by Carol Ann Duffy with illustrations by Rob Ryan, and this is fine. It's A Night Before Christmas retold by Carol Ann Duffy with different verses, and it was enjoyable. If you like Christmas, or you're thinking of a Christmas gift for a poetry lover, then you could probably get this, but I imagine they might already have it because it is quite old, and Carol Ann Duffy does usually release Christmas stuff now, so Merry Halloween. Next, my dad was going to a sheep sale, so I got taken to work way early. Yes, my father still takes me to work. I can't drive. And I was there an hour before anyone else showed up. So I just grabbed a book off the shelf, which happened to be The Daylight Gate by Jeanette Winterson, and I read 100 pages before anybody got there. And then once the day finished, I took it home and finished it at home because it was only 200 and something pages. The Daylight Gate is published by Hammer, and it tells the story of Alice Nutter and the Pendle Witches. I am still unsure how I feel about the book. If Jeanette Winterson was trying to emulate the Hammer horror films of the past, she definitely did that, but the writing style was off for me, and this was a book that, unlike the Mothers, I wanted it to be longer and I wanted the characters to be explored more. I liked some of the themes Jeanette Winterson dealt with. I just wish she'd delved into them a bit more, because it did feel very much like Jeanette Winterson needed to get a book out there. She'd been commissioned to write this book, so she just threw something down on the page and was like, here you go. And it was rushed, it was poorly plotted. I couldn't really get what she was trying to do with the witches and stuff, and it's been done so much better in other books that I just wish that this book had been more polished and accomplished as well. Finally, we get to a book that got my best rating of the month, and I'm calling it one of the best books I've read all year, and that is Autumn by Ellie Smith. I pre-ordered this as soon as I discovered that the book was being released, because I read Public Library and Other Stories last year, and that book it was amazing to me. I read it in November and I kept rereading stories out of it because it was just brilliant. And Autumn just reintroduced me to Smith's prose. Obviously, this is only the second book of hers I've read, and I'm coming quite late into the game here, so Ellie Smith has a lot of books out there. She's been shortlisted for the Booker, she's won numerous prizes, and Autumn is part of like a seasonal series, and it details autumn. It follows this character of Elizabeth and this other character of Daniel, and Daniel is this older gentleman and Elizabeth is shown to be his neighbour when she's younger. And basically, if you want a proper, fully flourished, amazing review of this book, then I will link you to Jen Campbell's video down below. I really appreciate the way that Ellie Smith uses language. I think that it is stupendous, commendable, all those good words, and it is one of those, it is a joy to read. A period of a few days I read this book, and it's just a great book, and there are so many links back to English writers. There's a point to me where it felt very reminiscent of like between Daniel and Elizabeth that to me seemed like, I think the Mad Hatter and Alice, I think they're the ones I'm talking about. If not, it's one of those other things where Daniel is saying things and anyway, and Elizabeth's questioning them, and Elizabeth is very precocious, and she kind of harkens back to all these other prominent female characters we have in literature, and Daniel does the same as kind of like the older figurehead, and it's just a brilliant book with that. Although it experiments with language and all these things, it does have quite a good narrative at its heart, and it's very much set in the present and feels incredibly present. And as a reader, I was so involved in the world. This was one of those books where to leave it, you kind of felt like you were missing part of yourself. And I was going to make a video about leaving yourselves, like leaving parts of yourselves inside fiction, inside the books that you read, because this book is amazing. I mean, obviously, I only read short books this month, but this was brilliant. And that's all I can really say about it. And yes, go and watch Jen Campbell's video because she says everything that should be said about this book. Now let's talk about the books that I started but didn't finish this month. First, we have Fool's Errand by Robin Hobb, and I am reading this as part of the read-along run by Sam over at Sam's Nonsense. We're meant to be finishing the trilogy about now, and I'm only 150 pages into it. I just wasn't ready to go back to Bookkeep, it seems. I really enjoyed the first 100 pages, but then I just feel like the narrative really slows down and we're not getting much storyline, and at the moment I'm going to go back to it, but I don't know when. Then I was really struggling to find something that I wanted to read, so I just went with my go-to book, which was Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. My book has got into an even worse condition now, so I've wrapped it in cling film to keep it together, and I'm 300 pages in. Next, another book that I bought from work is Company of Liars by Karen Maitland. This book had been on the shelves at work for ages, and then I started reading it, realised what it was about, and it talks about the plague and this band of characters who are all a bit different, and there's a bit of magic in there as well, and superstition, and it actually turned out that it's something that I really want to read. But it's long, and we just weren't ready for long books this month. And then we have The Little Stranger by Sarah Waters, a book that I've been seeing for years and never getting past the first page when I read it. This copy came into the shop and was £2, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to buy it. So bought it, and I was like, I'm going to read this for Halloween, it's going to be great. It's like this ghost story. Well, Halloween's been and gone now, and I still haven't read it. I'm on the second chapter, and whenever I get around to reading it, probably finish it and really enjoy it, but today is not that day. And I did wish that I'd actually read this book, because yesterday Sarah Waters was included in the Virago documentary, and that was brilliant. And again, I'll probably link to iPlayer below if it's on there. If you do get a chance to go and watch the Virago documentary, it's a very good documentary about Virago, the publishing house, and the talk about feminism and female writers within the literary world. So yes, go and watch it. So that was an assortment of books that I've bought, read, and not finished reading throughout the month of October. I have no idea how long this video is, but my tea is cold, so it's a sure sign that we waited too long. As I said, I'll be talking about why I didn't read so much this month in a video I'm about to film, so you'll get to see this brilliant jumper again. But once that video is recorded and uploaded, I will link that as well, and you can go and find out just why Charlie isn't reading as much at the moment. I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, that is all.